Hello everybody, this is Michael E. Gordon here with you today to talk about selections and masking using Adobe Photoshop. We're looking here at Windows 11 and Adobe Photoshop CC version 25.6.0. However, this procedure has been the same in Photoshop for some number of years. I'll briefly touch on the select and mask panel, which came into being some handful of years ago. So if you're using a newer version of Photoshop, you'll be able to do everything you see here. And you will likely have the select and mask tool as well. So let's first talk about selections and masking. The whole reason behind selections and masking allows me to apply local adjustments rather than global adjustments to a whole image. And because these are using Photoshop's adjustment layers, each one of these layers that I might build using masks and adjustments can be further modified or trashed and rebuilt, whatever the case. This is all non-destructive editing. There are generally two ways to make selections in Photoshop. Well, there's more than two ways, but there are briefly two ways to make selections. One is to make your selections using selection tools such as Object, Quick Selection, or Magic Wand tool, or to the left, the lasso, the polygonal lasso, or the magnetic lasso. Or secondarily, another way to do it is to first make an adjustment and then to apply the adjustment to the image using paintbrushes and painting it specifically where I want it to fall. That is my preferred method, but I'll demonstrate both. So in the case of this particular image, I want to make modifications to this window here. So let's first take a look at the quick selection tool, which for many objects is a good way to make selections. However, this window, the quick selection tool, doesn't necessarily work the best, and I'll show you. So notice up here under the tool options, we have the primary tool selection and then plus or minus to modify the mask further. So we'll either want it on the base selection or the plus, either is fine for the initial start. And then I'm going to try and trace around the window and see how well of a job this automatic selection does. And it does pretty well, but you'll see it does spill over and miss things. So it's pretty good, and I can further modify this, but this somewhat alludes to my preference for making an adjustment, inverting it, and painting it in exactly where I want it. This is the select and mask panel. It was up at the top of the frame there, select and mask. And once this mask builds out, you'll get to see which portion of this frame will be affected. And in general, in the Select and Mask tool, the tools that you'll want to modify for your mask are Smooth, Feather, and sometimes Shift Edge. And in this video, I won't get into these details, but this is how we can modify a selection that we've made using these three tools. And often these are quite good tools to use for a really basic selection. In the case of this window, it has a tougher time. Here's another alternative. Let's take a look here at the lasso tools. For something like this window, I particularly like the polygonal lasso tool. This allows me to draw linear lines directly around something that's square like this window. So I am going to try and get every bit of this window here, a little bit of its frame. So I'll click in one corner and then I'll keep dragging around the edge of the window frame. And when I hit the third corner, I can hit the enter key and let Photoshop, well, it won't want to do it right now for some reason. Photoshop will generally fill in the last line if I hit the enter key. Now I can do the same thing. Hit the select and mask function. My mask will be rebuilt. And I can make modifications to feather, shift edge, contrast, or smooth here. And shift edge is the way that we can move the mask into or out of the selection. It is often a useful tool to use. All right, so that's the second option for making selections. And I'll go ahead and complete this one. I'll move forward on this. So now I have an active selection. And let's just say I want to make a curves adjustment layer to make some increase in brightness. I'll scooch up a point there. We'll call that good enough. And if I click this on and off, you can see that my selection falls directly onto the window. And I can further refine the mask, which is there, or I can further refine the curve, which is here. There's lots of options for me. So there's a quick result from that method. I'll now turn that one off. And now I'm going to show you my preferred method, which is I'm going to first make an adjustment looking at only the window when I make this adjustment. So let's say I'd like to make the blacks a little stronger and the brights a little brighter, and I'll boost mid-tone values a little bit there. And if I turn that on and off, if I turn that on and off, you can see the effect of that adjustment, but note that it is falling on the whole frame. And when we're talking about Photoshop masks, when we see a white mask such as this one, white reveals, and when we look at this mask here, black conceals. And what that means is that the effect of the adjustment only falls into, I don't want that. I want it only to fall on the window. So what I'm going to do is make sure that my mask is selected by clicking on it. And now I'm going to Command or Control I, which will now invert that mask, which means I've hidden the adjustment from 100% of the image. And now what I want to do is paint it right into the window area. And I'm going to do that by choosing letter B for brush. I'm going to check my flow and opacity settings. And typically I want my flow to be at 100. And my opacity setting will always vary, and it can be anywhere from 5 to 100% depending on exactly the job I'm doing. In the case of this, let's just say I'll start at 70%. And then finally, I want to make sure, by looking over here at my color swatches, I want to make sure that I'm painting with white onto a black mask. White reveals. So if I want the operation to be seen, I need to paint with white now on this window. And I will begin to do that. And in painting with white, you can see the effect of my adjustment, and I've just turned it up to 100% actually. So I'm now painting in all those changes to the window only, and it's missing the background entirely. Or I should say everything outside the window frame. So there is the effect of this adjustment, and we can see by looking at my mask, I've missed little bits of it, which are easy enough for me to fill in using the brush. And I'm being fast and a little bit sloppy here, but you get the effect. And the reason why I prefer this method is because quite often a perfect selection around a window using one of the selection tools in Select and Mask can often result in kludgy and artifact looking edges, whereas painting results in very smooth edges most of the time. But in either case, I've taught you both methods here, and you can apply both of those methods to your work. If you have any questions about selections or masking in Photoshop, please feel free to leave me a note below or send me an email and I'll be happy to answer. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day.